Hi, my name is Kyle McInnes. I'm from BlackBerry Cool, and I'm here with Gabor Vida, president of Teknision. How you doing, Gabor?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about Teknision, what you guys do, some history about the company.
Okay. So we're a user experience design company. We've been around for about 10 years. We work with a lot of really great brands building out their user experience across everything from desktop applications to devices to embedded screens. And it's it's a great niche that we're starting to build for ourselves, especially now that people are really demanding dynamic, beautiful interfaces everywhere, and it's not that easy to build.
So the big news is the BlackBerry PlayBook. The launch is coming up very shortly on the 19th. And you guys had quite a hand in developing the UX.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what went into that, how, where that comes from, what you guys did.
Okay. So we've been working with QNX for a couple of years now. Great company, amazing operating system. It's across just about anywhere. Embedded into submarines and everything, right? And they had an interesting issue to solve. They realized that the user experiences that they were creating or that they were enabling, essentially, required a new kind of user paradigm. If you look at thanks to things like BlackBerry, but more so actually the iPhone. The runaway success of the iPhone. People got used to that kind of a user experience, and they expect it everywhere. So basically, anywhere where there's a screen, they expect that kind of a rich, responsive user experience. And if you don't get it, you start to infer things about the hardware. It's lacking in some way, right? So QNX brought us on a couple of years ago to help them with design and reference design and demonstrations of what's possible on various different types of hardware using their OS for various different industries, such as medical, home automation, that type of a thing. And then they started working on the what was at the time a really top secret project, PlayBook, and they liked the work that we were doing in the other industries for them, so they brought us in to help them with that project, and that's really how it started. And it was a good year of solid effort.
So a lot of the early reviews are out about the PlayBook, and something I've noticed pretty consistently across the board is that people love the UX. And maybe before we get into talking about what went into the UX, maybe you could help people who maybe aren't so technically inclined to understand what a UX is and more about what you guys put into that.
Sure. Well, the way that we approach the UX design specifically for say the tablet market or smartphones is the first thing that we think about is that these are really hyper-personal devices. They are so incredibly personalized. You could take my iPhone, and if you have one, and grab it and look at it and realize, even though it's the exact same operating system, operates exactly the same way, the same user paradigms, as soon as you start using it, you're slightly lost. It doesn't feel the same because you've personalized it. You've put some of your own personality into that device. And in order to do that, the operating system has to be more of a scaffold. It has to be simple. It has to allow the user to do the things that they want to do, but also make it their own. So that's where we started with PlayBook, with really any project like that, is get out of the user's way. Really enable them as much as possible, and then add in a lot of joy. You have to, for something that's that hyper personal, you have to add in playful touches. You have to make them human. You have to make scrolling lists bounce a little bit and that type of a thing, so that the users endear themselves to the device. So those are really the two main areas where we started, how we started approaching the interface.
So the reviews across the board are pretty consistent that people love the UX,
Mm-hmm.
and when you compare it to BlackBerry or when you compare it to other tablets, it was a pretty risky. It was a pretty risky design in that there was no back button,
Right.
And you have these bezel gestures and
Right.
stuff like that.
Yeah.
So you guys were kind of handed that, and you had to work with it.
To a certain extent, yeah, because the hardware was mostly set in that hardware is a lot more difficult to change, to make decisions on than software. Software is a lot more agile. You can change things as you go, right? So when we were brought into the project, it was fairly set. Here's roughly the size of the screen. Here's there's no button on it anywhere. That was an industrial design decision, and yeah, it's interesting when that's a constraint to your UX design. The first thing you realize is how powerful that one button was, but then that constraint gives birth to a lot of opportunity, and that's where the whole gesture-based interface really came from. Is that, okay, well, how do we allow people to create a mental model of the interface and move around in it easily without having to be without having a very pokey kind of interface, having it more smooth and fluid instead.
Yeah, so that seems more indicative of something like the iPad or the iPhone. It's
Right.
you're poking away, whereas bezel touching
Right.
seems more kind of almost like a magical swipe.
Yeah, and that's as I was talking about making people, getting them endeared with their device. That was part of that. Is that you really feel like this screen is a portal to a bigger world, and you're navigating it around with your gestures.
So tell me about some of the things that you guys are responsible for within the playbook that you're proud of. For example, the notification system was really your brainchild, even though maybe it's kind of evolved since.
Yeah, it has definitely evolved, but that came from the idea that there's certain things about the BlackBerry brand that are iconic. And one of those things is the flashing LED notification. That's one thing I love about a BlackBerry, is from across the room I can tell, maybe I have a message or an email or something like that, right? PlayBook didn't have that. We didn't have an LED that we could use in the exact same way. But we felt that was such a strong element of the BlackBerry brand that we wanted to bring that into the OS. So the result was a subtle, out of your way glow just in the corner that kind of tells you, hey, something's going on here, and then encourages you to kind of peel that away to see what the notification is. And I think it's evolved since then, but I think it's a really nice touch.
And the the carousel, the way the layers come up and down. You guys also had a hand in a lot of that.
Yeah, so that there's only so much that I can talk about the whole process, but really it was a very collaborative design process. Exactly the way the carousel works and the gestures used, a lot of that was some really great thinking from some senior members of the RIM team. But every good design process has lots of iterations. So taking the idea of, let's see if a pull down should show settings. Okay, well, let's go through many different ways to display that. So really, that was our role. Is here's the ask. Pull down shows X. well, here's 50 different ways to establish that, so that really people can try them on and say, no, that's the right way to do it. So that's really the role that we play.
And the and launch applications as well.
Right.
What are some of those applications that you worked on?
For example, the camera app, the photo app. The major applications that we were brought in for was the media applications, and almost like the infotainment stack of the applications.
And I mean, you guys obviously did a great job, because I'm reading the early reviews, and it seems like the UX, the media apps, the look of it is one of the most beautiful and widely respected parts of the playbook. The negative sides, people are still waiting for the OS to be a little more complete,
right.
Which is pretty typical for me and RIM.
Sure.
You get software updates pretty consistently.
Yeah.
So something I find really interesting, going back to these reviews, is there's a lot of talk about companies like the Astonishing Tribe, and I think it's assumed that they did all of this work. Can you give people a sense of maybe how these companies fit into the design and what part of the process?
Sure. Yeah. There were other companies involved throughout it, and I can understand how there's a little bit of confusion. And really, that's it's to be understood. The Astonishing Tribe, amazing company, right? That was a very, very smart move on RIM's part to grab them. They created the Android user experience. They were a big company. They are the right company to take PlayBook to the market, to grow it, to evolve it, to let it reach its potential. Not only are Tab an amazingly capable company, they've got a software stack that enables people to build applications faster. So there's some really good IP there, but they're also now taken out of the market. They were working for a lot of companies, creating user experiences for a lot of devices, and now they're solely working on RIM stuff. So it's a strategic move as well.
And I guess you guys are in similar businesses, so if anything, it's just opened up more market opportunities for you guys.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So one of the interesting things about your website is you guys kind of drop a bit of a bomb, saying, this is RIM has said this is coming to all smartphones. You're
Right.
going to see QNX.
Yeah.
But there's been a lot of confusion about what that will look like, and you guys kind of dropped the bomb that, hey, this is what we've been working on. We've been told this is going to eventually go to all devices. Is this something that, I'm sure you're under whatever NDAs, but
Right.
I mean, do you see Teknision as being part of the smartphone future?
We would love to play a major role in that, absolutely. I mean, we really can't talk about anything that isn't public knowledge, and really, so what we were talking about is exactly the types of things that RIM executives were talking about how the PlayBook OS really is a vision of the BlackBerry OS in the future. It's going to, the major elements of it are going to bleed across the entire product line, and it's just a matter of how, really, and that's a big challenge. It really is. It's more than just changes in form factor. There's changes in, you use a tablet in a different way that you use a smartphone. That's a big challenge for their UX team, and they're tackling it right now.
Well, let's talk about, let's say you got the job.
Okay.
What would Teknision's QNX enabled smartphone UX look like? What are some of the design principles you'd like to incorporate in something like that?
Well, whenever you look at the let's say tablets or smartphones in general, there's established norms already. You look at Apple's OS, you look at Android, the two major players. You take a look at Windows Phone, let's say. they all have similarities. So there's no reason to reinvent the wheel type of a thing. It's just a matter of sticking to what's familiar, and as I was saying before, just kind of pull out the complexity of the interface, make it clean, and then enable interesting ways to use it. And I think one of those interesting ways is using different types of input a little bit more. You know, I think that you're going to find the camera used for more than just taking pictures. You know, I think you'll find that there's a lot of interesting research being done with non-touch gestures and different types of connectivity. So I think that just the industry as a whole is going to start moving towards different ways of interacting with the device. And really, that's in terms of technology, that's how I see technology moving forward as well. Is it's not so much driven by what hardware can enable, but driven by how people want to interact with things
and what they're familiar with. And, right. So what's kind of in store for Teknision? You know, you guys have quite a few interesting clients. Radian 6 with that huge Salesforce acquisition.
Yeah.
What can we expect in the pipe for the company?
Well, we're going to keep working with great clients like Radian 6. There's some really cool projects there coming up. We're doing a bit of a road trip even just next week to talk to some new clients that are very exciting. What we want to carve for ourselves is what we're calling the embedded screen space. Yeah, and what that means to me is that people crave the dynamic, beautiful user interface relationships that they have with the PlayBook and with the iPad, and they want that in every screen. And we have screens everywhere. We have screens on our walls. We have screens on our televisions and our cars. Those types of experiences need to be spread across every embedded device. And the whole embedded screen marketplace is where we see explosive growth, and that's where we want to play, is spreading your own personalized, dynamic, powerful user experience across any screen that you may walk up to.
Well, the QNX partnership there and working together is I can see that being pretty incredible. I mean, these guys are in absolutely everything.
Yeah.
Everything from cars to you've got the Canadarm.
Yeah.
So it should be really interesting to see when you've got a powerful OS company like that with an very artistic UX design, how that affects things like you said, embedded systems in the home that continue seamlessly through your car into your home.
Yeah, yeah, and I think not enough is said about some of the other relationships, even just on the PlayBook as well. I mean, if you look at the potential of a system that has the incredible hardware of PlayBook, right? The OS, the QNX OS, is so solid, fast, and powerful. You add in a display layer provided by Adobe, with Flash and Air, and that opens up the entire Adobe developer base that has everything from real enterprise-grade developers to artists. The potential of what could happen on that platform, it's unbelievable. It's huge.
Yeah, and I think the early reviews didn't do a good enough job of really explaining that. When you've got a solid UX and solid hardware, and those kind of are the fundamentals of a good product.
Right.
When it comes to the operating system and updates and fixing bugs and stuff like that, that's so secondary to that core experience.
Yeah, that's a given. It's going to happen. You can expect it, but really what they're laying down is the groundwork for an entire platform, an entire ecosystem based on some of the most powerful technology available. You know, it's the potential's huge. I'd love to be able to fast forward a year from now and see what's out there.
Yeah, exactly, and see all of this stuff come together: the tablet, the smartphone, and then all these other embedded systems.
Exactly.
We're seeing the tablet and the smartphone in a car, etc.
Yeah.
Great. Well, hey Gabor, thanks for coming out.
My pleasure.
And
Thank
you guys have a really cool office here, really great team.
I'm glad to
and should be cool to see what you guys come up with.
Great. Thank you. Awesome.